Alexa, play that Amazon Ads podcast.
Which one would you like to hear?
The best one.
Okay, now playing that Amazon Ads podcast.
These gentlemen are completely changing the game.
After listening to that Amazon Ads podcast, my ads are finally profitable.
I also heard they're pretty cute.
Welcome back to that Amazon Ads podcast. Andrew, how are you?
I'm doing good, Steven. I'm actually just kind of afraid that people are going to make fun of me for this black eye that I have. I don't know if you can really see it too well, but
I actually can't see it, but also my internet's struggling, so it's not super high def. I'm sure once we get the HD loaded. How'd you get a black eye? Jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, jiu-jitsu. Got kneed in the side of the head. Yeah, on Tuesday. It was pretty rough, but it's not that bad. It's not that bad. Not as bad as your camera quality.
Are you allowed? You're not supposed to like knee people, right? It's not UFC jiu-jitsu. In UFC, you can throw punches, but not in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. It was just an accident. He didn't mean to, but it happens all the time. I usually leave at least once a month. I get hit in the face, get some bruise on my face. So
nice, dude. Lets people know not to mess with you. If people see me on the street, they're all probably thinking I can take them. Because you're a blue belt, right?
Yeah. I got my blue belt not too long ago. I was pretty excited about that. Yeah.
And how tall are you?
6'2", and I weigh about 200 pounds.
Yeah, when we were getting ready to go to El Salvador, my parents were like freaking out because historically there's a lot of crime in El Salvador, and I'm 5'7" and weigh 150, and I don't know how to fight outside of the 1 year of wrestling that I did in high school. But then my parents saw I was going with like a 220-pound Marine. And Andrew, who's how much do you say you weigh? 200?
200, about 200.
200, 6'2", jiu-jitsu, blue belt. They were like, all right, he'll be fine.
Yeah, he'll be all right. We'll take care of you.
But also, what is that? My parents don't think I can hold my own.
Yeah, what's up with that?
That's offensive.
You were a wrestler for 1 year? I didn't know about that.
Only 1 year, yeah.
What was your weight class when you were wrestling?
108.
Did you just win every match? Did you win every match by default? By default, because nobody weighed that much.
No, I made it. I made it to our JV team on my first year. I was a freshman, joined, made it to JV, and then I forgot what my win streak was. Probably not.
Nice,
probably
man.
50-50. Anyways, that's besides the point. We're here talking about Amazon ads. And this episode is continuing this series that you know we want to lay down a lot of foundational work around. Yeah, we want to lay down a lot of the foundations so that as the podcast moves on, we can talk a lot more in depth about different strategies, and we can use these all as reference episodes. So we're kicking things off with bidding because, as you may recall, if you heard our first episode, we said keyword bidding covers a multitude of sins. We still firmly believe that, and we are now trying to explain to you all of the different types of keyword bids. So, Andrew, remind everyone, what are the 4 criteria and our kind of 5th bonus criteria for what we do with our bids?
Yeah, for sure. So typically, our bidding formulas fall into 4 or 5 categories. The first one we covered on the last episode, which was high spend, high ACOS. We have high spend, non-converting, low spend, low visibility, and then low ACOS. But then that 5th bonus one is our low spend, non-converting keywords. So we're going over all 5 of those different methods of making bid changes.
Yeah. And last week we covered the high spend, high ACOS scenario, which I don't know, at least in my estimation, might be the most important. That might be the most important bid formula for myself. I think it's the one that drives the most results. And I think we also said earlier that whenever we take on new accounts, I think both Andrew and I, we'll guarantee our clients that, potential clients, I should say, we'll guarantee potential clients that within 30 days, performance will so drastically improve that the cost of our services will more than pay for themselves. And if not, we won't charge them their money back, and so far we've never had anybody make a claim on that guarantee yet, because we've always been able to fully satisfy and fully meet that guarantee. And that happens singly from the keyword bids, because all previous management that as far as I know, no previous management has ever been implementing these strategies, which we are doing. They're either using automated solutions, just going off of a set of just predetermined rules, or using some form of AI, or there's just no bid management happening, or there's just a lot of guesswork happening and not careful, logical, calculated, precise. I don't know which word I wanted to say for a second there. But there's not a lot of precision in these. And so we're trying to be very precise. We also said in that first episode, laying down the fundamental principles, that you have to use math in all of your optimizations. And so we're showing you guys how to do that, and to not just we're trying to remove the guesswork from optimizations. And a lot of people, it seems, they kind of guess, they operate off of hunches. And whereas there is a time and place for hunches, all of your optimizations can't be hunches. Hunches only begin where math ends, but we want to use math as far as we can to get there. So anything else you want to add to that, Andrew, or should we just kind of jump in and kick off into, well, also let us know what this episode's about, which bid in particular?
Yeah. Today we're just going over the high spend, non-converting keywords and covering the mathematical approach we use to making optimizations against things that are getting clicks but haven't generated any sales, and how we can, set those bids appropriately for keywords that, haven't generated any revenue yet. So excited to dive into this. That's all for me.
Yeah. And I think this might be the second most important bidding formula. And so we decided it deserves an episode of itself. The next ones for low spend, low ACOS, we'll give those. We can probably group those together into a single episode, but certainly for last week's episode, the high spend, high ACOS, and then for this episode, high spend, non-converting, they both deserve fully dedicated episodes. We hope these are super helpful for you guys, because they've been able to transform accounts overnight for us. And so with that, let us dive in. We might need to change that transition sound at some point. We have to do some research on transition sounds, get a good one. I'm not sure if that fits with our theme here. Andrew, before we actually talk about what we're doing, which is essentially it's a mathematical approach to get a properly calculated bid for the scenarios in which there is a lot of spend on a keyword but no sales. Because mind you, listeners, last week we were very adamant about the revenue per click approach. Obviously, if there is no revenue for a keyword, how are we going to calculate a revenue per click model? So we're going to be answering that question, still using the revenue per click model. We're still going to be using that. So we'll explain in a second how we do that. But Andrew, what have you seen trending, people advocating for this scenario? Let's start off with what's been popular, what's been trending. What do you typically see people saying we should do in these scenarios?
Yeah. I think that most people, whenever they're running an ad to a specific keyword, it starts getting a lot of clicks. Maybe it gets 10, 15, 20 clicks and no sales. What I've seen personally is people tend to either, one, nuke that bid completely, or two, they'll archive the keyword because they'll say, this keyword has gotten 20 clicks. It hasn't generated a sale. It must not be relevant, or it must not convert for my product. And so I've seen people talking, in those scenarios, archive the keyword, drop the bid significantly so it stops spending because that keyword's not relevant. So that's what I usually see. What about you?
Yeah, I see pretty much the same thing, but I'll add to that. People will talk about high spend and they never define what is high spend. And I've seen so many YouTube videos where people are saying, here's how you do this. And they'll just jump in there and they're going to say, I'm just going to say if any keyword has over $20 to spend and no sales, we're going to go through and we're going to archive them or add them as negative keywords. They're going to do those types of approaches. And I'm wondering, where did you get the $20 from? Some people might say, I'm going to go with $5. And another big question is, and this is kind of where we designed this bidding formula from this angle, in which we say, if a keyword has too much spend and no sales, if it has quote unquote too much spend, is the problem the keyword or is the problem the bid? Because if a keyword has $20 to spend and no sales, then that's way too much. It's breaking the bank. Obviously, if your product is a $20 product and you're selling or you already spent $20 on a certain keyword and haven't gotten any sales, that might be too much. But maybe that had one click and at a $20 CPC. I'm speaking hyperbolically. I probably am going to do that a lot to like prove the point. But I don't think it would be unrealistic to see a keyword with, depending on the niche, very few clicks and a ton of spend, because the CPCs are $1, $2. I mean, CPCs can get up to $4 or $5 depending on the niche and keyword. So what we want to do here is not just, we don't want to be arbitrary. Especially if you are an account manager managing multiple client accounts, we're going to show you how you can tweak these formulas for every individual account, every individual client, even each individual product is going to be the end game here. And yeah, every product, what constitutes high spend is going to be different for them. So with that, let's actually jump in. We have another presentation here for you. A nice little pretty PowerPoint. So if you are on YouTube, welcome. And we hope you enjoy this show. And if you're just listening, we're going to do our best to explain what's on the screen, but you can always check us out on YouTube and catch the rest of it there. So, okay. Bidding strategies, scenario number 2, high spend, non-converting. What do you do?
What do you do?
Andrew, why don't you kick us off here? What's our like overall kind of thought process here, the guiding core tenet of this philosophy?
To use math to hit our key performance benchmarks that we have set. So one of the, I guess for this slide, we're just kind of recapping and giving a couple different ways of thinking about ACOS and how we can leverage some different metrics to draw some conclusions to how we can set these bids. So just a reminder, ACOS, ad cost of sales, so spend divided by sales. Another way of thinking about how you could calculate ACOS at like a total account level, if you're thinking about averages and stuff like that for your total account, you could look at, or even campaign or ad group level, you can look at your cost per acquisition over your average order value. So same idea there. You have your cost over your revenue or your value of that product, basically. So that's like an important distinction and understanding to have as we go into this, because we're going to be using those two metrics quite a bit in these formulas. So cost per acquisition and average order value. And we'll explain a couple different ways that you can get to that, whether you're looking at your overall account and you want to make optimizations based off your total account performance and the benchmarks for your overall account, or if you want to look at the campaign level or even the product level, individual product level, we'll give you some tips for how you can streamline that process for getting the average order value at the individual product level. We'll throw some tips in there for you for how you can name your ad groups and things like that to make that easier.
Yeah, and please do not misunderstand us or take offense at us when we keep reiterating that ACOS is spend divided by sales. We do not mean to imply that you don't already know that. What we are trying to do is we're trying to think in terms of the most basic fundamental pieces of logic and then build upon that. And so last week when we were talking about the revenue per click model, we started off with that presupposition, spend over sales is ACOS. And then we just took that same meaning and applied it to a click by click basis. So we did cost per click divided by sales per click, to figure out how CPC bidding and factoring in revenue per click and all that stuff is going to work to get us to hit our target ACOS. For this week, we are looking at essentially an order by order level. And so we're looking at cost per acquisition, which is still just cost, and then average order value, which is essentially sales. And so in case if anyone did not know this, if you're a little bit newer to digital marketing, it's very common abbreviations. You'll hear people talk about CPA and AOV. Your CPA is your cost per acquisition, which is just total spend divided by total orders. And your average order value is your total sales divided by total orders. Now, using the same kind of logic from last week of that whole CPC over RPC, whatever, we can do the same here to figure out what should your target cost per acquisition be based off of your current average order value. And the logic for that is actually pretty simple. Your average order value is, let's just say you take your total sales. trying to pick easy numbers here. If you got $1,000 worth of sales and 100 orders, that would be an AOV of, let me use smaller numbers. If you got $100 of sales and 10 orders, your AOV would be $10 per order, right? So you got 10 orders. Each order was at an average of $10. In total, you got $100 of sales. If your target ACOS, let's just say, is 30%, then of that $100 of sales, you should have had around $30 worth of spend, right? That would have meant you were on target for hitting that goal of a target ACOS. So if you should have spent around $30 to get those 10 orders, what does that mean your cost per acquisition be? It's going to be the $30 of spend divided by your 10 orders. That's going to give you a $3 cost per acquisition. So on average, regardless of how many clicks you're getting, how much traffic you're getting, you should be averaging $3 in spend for every order that is worth $10. Do you think people are tracking? Andrew, is there anything you want to add to that? Anything you think I'm missing there?
No, that makes sense. I think the only thing I would add is just like tying it back to what we were talking about earlier. Like when people say, what's a lot of spend or what's like a high spend keyword, this is how you would get to that conclusion per account. So you can take it from an account by account basis and figure out, based on what my target ACOS is and how much revenue I'm generating, here's about how much I should be spending in order to earn a sale. And so anything above that could be considered a high spend target. And so that's how you would get to that conclusion of this is a high spend target. This is something that we need to potentially pull the reins back in on. We're spending more than we should be if we're trying to hit that target ACOS.
Yep, exactly. And I personally do like this approach to bidding, which is looking more at the total spend on a keyword versus the total number of clicks on a keyword. Because frankly, I don't care if a keyword has only one click or if it has 100 clicks and it hasn't converted yet. As long as the total cost on that is below $3, I'm okay. Right? If I'm getting 100 clicks, but it's all 2 cents, and at the end of the day, I'm hitting that $3 cost per acquisition over and over and over again. Every 100 clicks, I'm spending around $3 and still driving a $10 order every 100th click. I'm okay with that. On the flip side, if I have another keyword that is only getting, let's just say, to pick the other extreme, every other click it converts. So it's got like a 50% conversion rate. Every other click, it's getting a conversion. Then as long as those, as long as the total cost on that, my cost per click could be $1.50 on those, which would be significant, which would be, much higher than the other scenario. But as long as, we're not exceeding $3 per acquisition, we're okay. So it could have 2 clicks and $3 to spend, or it could have 100 clicks and $3 to spend. Either way, we want to be paying attention mostly to that cost per acquisition, because that's the threshold that we don't want to exceed. So like you said, Andrew, the way we define high spend is any keyword in which the spend on that keyword exceeds what your target cost per acquisition should be. And so this is something that you can figure out at a campaign level, at an ad group level, depending on how your structure is. I'm sure we'll do another episode talking about our structure, but let's just, for the rest of this kind of episode, let's just assume this is all within one campaign, and let's assume you've only got one product in this campaign. It could be multiple ad groups. I don't really care. But for simplicity, let's just say there's, you got one campaign, you got one product, and that's kind of what we're working with here. So within this campaign, you've got some keywords that have differing levels of spend. Some have $1 of spend, some have $10 of spend. And what we're trying to figure out here is at what point, what should our threshold be, rather than being arbitrary and saying anything with $20 of spend, I'm just going to archive, or anything with $5 of spend, I'm just going to archive. What we're going to be trying to do here is actually calculating what the right bid should be so that we are on target for our ACOS. And we're going to begin by figuring out that target cost per acquisition for the campaign. So we're going to take the total sales for that campaign, divide that by our total orders for the campaign. That's going to give us our average order value for this whole entire campaign. And then once we figure out the average order value, multiply that by your target ACOS, whatever percent, and that's going to be your target cost per acquisition. So hopefully that makes sense. That's essentially going to be the filters that we apply here. So, if you were doing this in a bulk sheet, or if you were doing this in the targeting tab, I should say, in the Amazon Ad Console, this is the filter you would apply. After you've done that math, you would say, show me all of the keywords that exceed this spend threshold and have no sales. And actually, if you want to play things a little bit more conservatively, you can actually get a little bit ahead of that target CPA. You can get a little bit ahead of that target CPA. So let's just say you did the math. You realize your target cost per acquisition is $5. So on average, you should be spending $5 to earn an order. Well, you can actually start this threshold. You can say, show me anything with $4 and up or $3 and up. You can get a little bit ahead of it. And part of why we like this bid formula that we're about to show you here is that it works well with that. In fact, you could say $1 and up and it would still work, because we're not just blanket archiving things or blanket decreasing all these by 20% or 50%. We are going to be calculating those bids. So, Andrew, do you want to just explain that formula right there? It's a little bit tricky to explain, so I'll try to, jump in.
Yeah.
But yeah, walk us through that middle section on the slide.
For sure. Yeah. So basically, what we're looking at here is target CPC. We're trying to figure out, what on average should we be targeting to spend at a click by click level to meet our target ACOS when this product doesn't have any, or this keyword doesn't have any sales. So target CPC is equal to our target ACOS times our average order value over the current clicks on the keyword plus the average clicks to conversion. That's just clicks over orders. So on average for this campaign, how many clicks does it typically take to generate a single conversion? So the reason, this works, whether you have one click or even if you have 0 clicks, this is a good formula for figuring out what your starting bids should be based on the campaign or the account. But this is basically saying every single time that this keyword gets an additional click, that should bring or an additional click without a conversion, I should say. Your overall target CPC should be coming down with every additional click that we get. That's how I interpret it. Steven,
Dude,
what else you got there?
No. I think you did a great job. That makes perfect sense to me. I'm thinking this is so difficult to understand, especially if you're not seeing visually what we have here.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's making us, Andrew and I were trying to do our best to educate whoever's listening, but it does make me think more about that idea we were throwing around doing like a fuller online course where we can, I think, be a bit more technical. I mean, and detailed, because I think these concepts might be a little bit difficult for some people to understand, but it's really challenging if we had a whiteboard, that's what I want to do. I want to do a class where we can have like a whiteboard and make this online course or something. So maybe we'll do that.
Dig in a little further.
If people ask for it, we'll do it. So leave a comment saying, please make the class.
Let us know.
And we'll do it. Yeah. But otherwise, yeah, I'll try to reiterate what you said and hopefully it makes sense to everyone listening. But I'm going to back up a little bit. If you're looking at this formula that we have here, a very astute person might notice this is the same revenue per click model that we showed you last week. Last week we said it's revenue over sales times target ACOS. And if you look at this, you see there we've just replaced revenue with average order value is all we did. So we're showing, what's your average order value that for this campaign, that's kind of like your anticipated revenue per click. So it's your average order value divided by clicks, which is essentially revenue per click once you finally get that first order. And then we're just multiplying that by the target ACOS. So that's essentially all we're doing. The other factor that makes this unique is that it's not just sales over clicks. We're also, because we haven't actually gotten that sale yet, it would be a little bit presumptuous of us to say, if this keyword has 10 clicks and no sales, first to calculate the bid as if it converted on that 10th click, and it nailed the $10 AOV, got that click. If we were just to assume that it did convert on the next click, then this would work. But I think that would be a little presumptuous to think that it would convert on the next click. So what we are doing here instead is, instead of just doing divided by the current clicks and calling it a day, we're saying it's your kind of anticipated sales divided by clicks plus the average number of clicks it takes to get a conversion. And so with that, a few ways in which you can think about what that means, the average number of clicks to get a conversion. Most simply, it's just total number of clicks divided by total number of orders for the campaign. Again, someone who's astute, they might observe that's just the inverse of conversion rate, right? Conversion rate is total number of orders divided by clicks. So for this whole campaign, if you had 10 orders over 100 clicks, you'd be averaging a 10% conversion rate. If we just flip-flop that and do clicks over orders, that means on average it takes 10 clicks to earn that order. And so for this scenario, if we're sticking with that kind of 10-click example, let's just say for this campaign, average order value is $10. Average number of clicks it takes to get an order is 10 clicks. And on this keyword in particular, it already has 10 clicks, but it doesn't have any orders yet. So we're kind of bleeding, losing some money here. The CPI, the total spend on this is already over $3. So it's already kind of raising some red flags for us. It's exceeding our spend threshold. This keyword bid needs to be optimized. We don't just want to pause the keyword or completely archive it because it might convert on the next click. We don't know. But what we do know is that when that conversion happens, if it happens, we know that when it happens, our bids are going to be dialed in and we'll be right on that target ACOS. And so what we're going to do here is plug in the $10 AOV on that top. On the denominator there, we're going to say 10 clicks plus 10, because on average, it takes 10 clicks to get a conversion. So essentially dividing by 20 there. So 10 clicks plus 10, and then multiply that by your target ACOS, and that will be your bid. And what that means is that if that CPC comes down to that point, when it does convert, it'll be right at 30% or whatever you were targeting. So hopefully that made sense. Andrew, thoughts?
Yeah, no, makes sense. My question, I guess, and one thing, I don't know if maybe we want to get into this right now, but let's say, you have a ton of products. You have a bunch of different ad groups and a bunch of different products. How would you know quickly, without a lot of manual work, what that AOV for that particular product or campaign is? Or what's the price of that product? What's a quick way we can, build into our system here to be able to extract that average order value for that campaign? Let's say it doesn't have any sales yet or something like that.
Yeah, that is also a good point. If you did have a campaign that was fresh off the bulk launch pad, and there's no sales at all, I would just use your unit sales price.
Right. So yeah, you pretty much covered that well, man. I think that, like what I was saying was, like, for every additional click that you're getting, that target CPC is going to slowly be laddered down, simply because, your revenue per click is slowly going down with every single additional click that we're getting. So that average order value over your clicks slowly going down with every single click, because that denominator is continually growing and growing and growing and cutting into that revenue per click, which after you multiply it by your target ACOS, that spend level is going to need to be a lot lower in order for you to hit that target ACOS with every additional click. So other than that, I'm good on this. I think we could move on and potentially, show some examples of how we're using this. I think that's what's next, right?
Mm-hmm. And conceptually, Andrew, I hope that makes sense for everybody, because that one part that you said where with each additional click, it's going to be slowly.
The revenue per click gets lower with every additional click.
Correct. Yeah. That's a good way to word it. So if you did have that, if your AOV is, let's just say it's fixed, right? Because your unit price isn't changing. Yeah, your revenue per click is your sales divided by clicks. If your revenue per click is really low, that will naturally lower your bid, your CPC. If your revenue per click is extremely high, that'll increase your CPC, given the formulas that we've presented to you guys. And so since clicks is in that denominator, as you keep dividing by more and more clicks, that revenue per click is getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, which is going to be reducing your bids. And so you said it well. I'm just repeating it in case if anyone missed it. But with each additional click using this formula, your bids are slowly getting scaled back. And this formula works because it doesn't just use random arbitrary numbers. It's, first of all, assuming what your average clicks to conversion is, using your average conversion rate, it's kind of starting with a pretty good amount of data off of that. But then it's also using data that's unique to that keyword, which is how many clicks does this keyword already have? And another reason why I like this formula and the formula we presented last week is that there is no limit to the number of iterations or frequency with which you can run these formulas. Because if you were doing that, hey, anything that with $5 to spend or $10 to spend and no sales, we're just going to decrease that bid by 20% or 10%, whatever. If you do that this week, let's say next week you're going to run that formula again, and maybe that keyword didn't get any new data, but for the time frame that you're selecting, it still has the same data as it had last time. You're going to be reducing the bids again, or if you ran that on if you ran that daily, which I guess, most people wouldn't, but if you did, try to run that daily and it's decreasing the bids by 10%, 10%, 10% constantly, while, the keyword data itself isn't changing from day to day, it's going to run you into some issues there. But what we're doing is every single time you run this formula, you're not going to have that issue of over applying the formula, because it's always just going to be recalibrating based on how many that individual keyword's performance and the campaign's kind of average performance. So it's factoring in the average performance for the campaign, average order value, average conversion rate, and then also that individual keyword's performance based on how many clicks it's gotten so far. And we're just dialing that bid in so that on the day of conversion, whatever it may be, our target ACOS will be on point. And then if it never, ever, ever converts, yes, there is a time and a place to archive keywords, which maybe we can mention that super briefly, Andrew. I mean, for you, at what point is a keyword archivable or pausable?
Yeah, for sure. I think this is good because especially you run this formula. Let's say you run this formula and it sets your bid to like 2 cents or less than 2 cents. Say it's 1 cent that it's setting it to. It's saying, you have already spent and gotten a lot of clicks on this this keyword. It's the confidence that this is going to convert is getting lower and lower and lower, and so your bids are becoming lower and lower and lower. If you get to the point where you're it's setting your bids to 2 cents or 1 cent, you can effectively just pause that campaign or pause that keyword, because the likelihood of that converting is very, very low. Unless you change some stuff up on, your product detail page or something like that improves your conversion rates. But that aside, this is kind of where you would want to look at archiving keywords. That way you don't have different bidding formulas starting to overlap with each other and interact with each other in a way that you don't really want. So let's say for this one, you're reducing your bids on this, but then let's say that keyword starts to not get as much visibility. And then we have this other formula that is increasing bids on things that are getting or that have low visibility. You're basically just going to be going down the scale, decreasing bids. And then you run your other formulas, it's going to be increasing your bids. So to prevent that from happening, whenever you start to see those bids that low, it's okay to effectively pause those.
Yeah. So what I'll usually do is, when I have my bulk file downloaded, I run my formula from last week, which is doing revenue per click for anything that had high ACOS. And then I'm running this model, which is essentially lowering the bids in a calculated method on anything that has a lot of spend and isn't converting. And then based off all those bid changes, I'll usually sort my bid column by ascending order. So looking at the lowest bids first, because whatever was calculated with a 2 cent, 3 cent bid based off of our math, those are probably, not super well performing items. They probably have super low conversion rates. And so if they do have those extremely low conversion rates, some kind of red flags there, I'll take a look at them, but I'll review what those targets actually are to see if they're irrelevant. And if any of them did convert, perhaps it was like just coincidental. And so those could be some archive opportunities, but some of them, it might just be that, maybe you're selling shirts for men and someone searched shirts for women and it still converted because maybe there was a woman who liked sky shirts or something, like, she's tomboy or something. I mean, I don't know if that's PC anymore, but whatever.
Maybe she bought it for her husband.
Yeah, whatever, And so maybe even if it's an extremely low conversion rate on that thing, if these formulas are saying, hey, you should be bidding if your average CPC is like usually 50 cents or $1, and when you do these formulas, it says, hey, you should be only spending 5 cents on this. Do you want to archive that? Or if you can be profitable at 5 cents, you might as well, right? And maybe with that low of a bid, you're only going to get one extra sale a month. It's not going to, be life-changing. But if you've got hundreds of those keywords, and that could be several hundred orders per month, those types of things. So yeah, I don't like to just archive things right out the gate unless if it's clearly irrelevant, it's clearly not performing. If you run these formulas and the formulas are telling you that you should be bidding like less than 2 cents, which is the lowest you can even get, you can't go lower than 2 cents on Amazon Keyword Bid. So if you run a formula and it's telling you shouldn't even be spending 2 cents, it's not even worth that much, then you could probably archive it. But anything that's above 2 cents, I would say don't archive it unless if it seems like the sale was pure coincidence. Like, you're selling jacuzzis you're selling jacuzzis and someone searched swim trunks. And if that earned you a jacuzzi sale, it's like, I'm picking really bad examples. I'm just going to stop talking.
Yeah, I have a decent example I just ran into with this is this client selling goggles and people searching for prescription goggles. Maybe like one-off had a conversion on somebody bought it by looking for a prescription goggle. We don't sell prescription goggles, but they ended up purchasing some goggles anyway. You harvested that term, and then you start to see that it doesn't actually perform on a long-term basis. So that's another more applicable example, I guess.
Well, let me stop butchering this podcast with bad examples and take a look at the one example that we actually wrote out here and we have on the screen. But we're just throwing out a hypothetical. We're assuming for this example that it's a higher AOV product. We're assuming an average order value of around $100. So let's say you're selling products that go for around $100 and there's a certain keyword in there with $40 to spend and no sales. Now that would normally trigger a lot of alarms. A lot of people would be quick to archive that. $40 of spend, no sales. What? We got to get rid of this. But that might not necessarily be the case. So let's just assume our kind of target ACOS is 30%. So Andrew, if your target ACOS is 30% and your average order value is $100, what does that mean your target cost per acquisition should be?
About $30.
About $30. So this is exceeding that target cost per acquisition. We're up at $40. We should have hoped to get a sale at $30. So now we're going to try to, rather than just archive this keyword, because let's just say we take a look at the keyword and it's exactly right. Maybe we're selling blenders and the keyword was blenders. Okay. If we're not going to archive it just because it spent a lot, we're going to optimize the bid so that when it converts, because fingers crossed it will, we'll be there. So in this hypothetical example, we're also saying that there's maybe 20 clicks on this keyword, which with $40 to spend would give it an average cost per click of around $2. And we're also going to assume, since it's a higher AOV product, that it's got a lower conversion rate. So on average, it takes 50 clicks to convert. If you inverse that, that's around a 2% conversion rate. So a pretty low conversion rate for this hypothetical example product. So that's the data. So we have, we're trying to hit 30% ACOS, $100 AOV. The keyword already has 20 clicks and $40 to spend. So now we're going to optimize it. So Andrew, why don't you walk us through that formula that we've got pulled up there?
Yeah, for sure. So our target CPC is going to be equal to our target ACOS, which we have as 30% for this account, this theoretical account, multiplied by our AOV over clicks plus average clicks to conversion. So we have our $100 AOV, as Steven mentioned, and then we've already gotten 20 clicks. So we'll add 20 clicks plus our 50 average to cost to or clicks to conversion. So basically how it would look is 30% times $100 over 20 clicks plus 50 clicks, which is our average clicks to conversion. And if we break that down, that's 30% times $100 over 70 clicks, which gives us one. You want to stop? Let's go.
Well, I was going to just add something right here while we camp here for a second. But I jumped in a little too early. I did want you to finish saying $100 over 70 clicks total. But I wanted to jump in here and say, especially if you're seeing this, this is the revenue per click model. it's $100 in revenue over 70 clicks. However, we shouldn't call it, it's not the pure revenue per click that we showed you last week. This is what we could call the anticipated revenue per click model. And so we don't have a revenue per click yet because there's no sales. And that's why we actually, we have the little Excel divide by zero error screenshot there for the slide.
like that.
You know, when you're dividing, well, no, that was a bad example with revenue per click, but I meant with ACOS dividing by sales, whatever. There is no revenue yet. So we can't calculate revenue per click, but we're anticipating what would the revenue per click be when that average order value comes in. And then we're also using the current amount of clicks, but then also factoring in, again, the anticipated number of clicks that it takes. So it's the anticipated revenue that will come through and the anticipated number of clicks it will take to obtain that. And quite frankly, this model, this anticipated revenue per click, is something that you should be using as your starting bids. Like when you're launching this campaign, if you already have any history on this product at all, if you're launching a new campaign for a product and you're like, what should my starting bids be? This is what your starting bid should be. Look at that product's average order value or its sales price, whatever, and look at its average conversion rate and figure out on average how much should you be spending to get a sale. And that's going to be what your target CPC should be, or I should say your starting CPC should be. And if you start with that, and let's just say you find out, whatever. We're being too repetitive, but hopefully that makes sense. Yes.
Let's say you are running this fresh. This is brand new. You have never run ads on this before, but you have had it listed and it has been generating sales organically. Yeah. You could take a look at your total sales data. You could look at, AOV over, that unit session percentage as well,
exactly.
Or order item session percentage, whichever one it is. And you could basically factor out or figure out your starting bids for this particular product based off the total performance of this product.
Exactly. Yeah, that's really well said. Yeah, you could, kind of take the same principle and do, instead of revenue per click, you could say, average revenue per session.
Mm-hmm.
And then if on average you're generating $10 per session and your target ACOS is 30%, you should be spending $3 per session. Wait, what? I lost my train of thought.
$3.33 per acquisition. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, and then obviously you got to just, reconvert that back into clicks and average conversion rate and all that stuff. So anyways, hopefully that makes sense. Andrew, why don't you just walk us through the final remainder of this math? So reiterate where you left off and kind of what the result is here.
Yeah, for sure. So basically, all that's left to do is multiplied our anticipated revenue per click by our target ACOS. Pretty simple. We ended up with $1.43 as our anticipated revenue per click. And our target ACOS, again, is 30%. So we'll multiply that by 0.3. And that gives us a target CPC of 43 cents. So on average, we should be spending about 43 cents per click on this particular keyword.
Yeah. So the keyword issue here in this example, when it had $40 of spend, no sales, it's way over that our target cost per acquisition. The issue here wasn't necessarily the keyword itself. We shouldn't necessarily just archive this keyword, get rid of it, and call it a day and call it an optimization. What we're finding out is that $2 CPC was way too high. We should have been averaging a 43 cent CPC, which sure, maybe you won't get as much traffic there, but if you know that 30% ACOS is the difference between being profitable or not, and for you it's very important that you don't exceed your target ACOS on these ads, then the question is, would you rather have more unprofitable traffic and be losing more money faster, or would you rather get a little bit less traffic on this keyword, but at least that when it converts it's profitable, or at least hitting your target? So that is what the result here gets you. Essentially calculating the bid properly without any sales data.
Absolutely. I think, I don't know, I kind of just thought of this, but like in your example, let's say this keyword is blender and you're selling blenders and it's like super relevant to your product. And you still have that overarching 30% ACOS target for your account that you want to stay within. That doesn't necessarily mean that every single keyword has to be at 30% ACOS, right? Like if that keyword is super relevant to you and you're really focused on growing rank and getting as much traffic through that keyword as you can, because you know it's super relevant to your product and it's what you need to drive sales through, you could potentially have a higher ACOS target for that particular keyword to prevent those issues of losing visibility by slashing these bids to 43%. But that was just a thought that I had, like you could potentially set this target ACOS a little bit higher depending on the relevance of the keyword and the importance of it to your product and to your business. It's important to keep those things in mind as well. That it's not all just a one for one. Like if it's above your 30% target ACOS, then you have to, or it's, if you need to slash the bids because it's not performing at that overall account benchmark. I think it's important to have a little bit of nuance there when approaching these things and keep that product to keyword relationship top of mind as well.
Yeah. Now we're really getting complicated here, huh? Multiple
we don't-
target ACOS optimizations. We didn't even factor in the top of search adjustment multipliers yet here. So
no,
we'll say that for another time.
Layer.
Yeah, that's one more step. Yeah, I think that kind of wraps up this one. For the next episodes, it'll be significantly less complicated. So if any of that felt perhaps a bit overwhelming, just give it a few weeks, come back, rewatch it. I'm sure after it has some time to marinate, it'll make sense. Maybe for some of you, this made perfect sense. Maybe for some of you, this is already what you're doing. The next few episodes are going to be easier. We're just going to say increase bids by 10%, stuff like that. So being a little bit hypocritical, but we'll kind of explain what we mean and some guardrails there. I think the only thing now is for you guys to just like, follow, and subscribe.
Well, real quick. Let's give them some homework based off of this here. Everybody, go download a bulk sheet for the last month or whatever date range you want to look at, and try to use these formulas. Right, like set the filters like we've talked about in the last two videos. Try to use the formulas, and if you're running into any issues, leave a comment for us, send us a message or something, and we'll try to help you work through it to figure out how or what you're running into, where it's going wrong. But the best way for you to take this is to take this information and apply it as quickly as possible and see the type of results that it gets you. Because I know when I first started using these formulas, it made an immediate impact on the account performance within a day. So if you're not seeing those results, you're doing something wrong.
And honestly, I mean, I know we were pushing pretty hard on the high spend threshold, but frankly, I think you could literally do this for just every keyword without any orders at all. Because maybe there's a keyword that doesn't have any clicks yet. Or maybe in this, actually, let's go back to this example we had here. We said $40 to spend, 20 clicks. Let's just say this keyword only had one click. If we went back in time on this keyword to its very first click, and it was a $2 CPC. And if we had done this formula again, let me just actually do the math real quick. We would have sent the keyword bid back to around 60 cents, like 58 cents, 60 cents. So if we had done this way back then, when the first click came through, if we ran this formula, we would have ended up with having a 60 cent bid. And if we were averaging a 60 cent CPC this whole time, our total spend on this would be significantly lower. And that 60 cent CPC is only a result of just figuring out, the unit sales price on average, how many clicks it takes to get a conversion. That would have told us we should be bidding around 60 cents. And with each additional click, if we went from 1 click to 20 clicks during that time, that CPC would have slowly scaled back from what I just said was around 58 cents, would have scaled its way down to 43 cents. With each additional non-converting click, it would scale its way back down. Of course, there's plenty of room in here to tweak and optimize. Something we were also pretty adamant about in episode 1 is we said, think for yourself. I think that was like our 5th principle. Everything that we're doing here, we're not going to say this is the formula of like the king formula. Everything here is meant to be tweaked. In fact, in my own kind of macros, I have one variable in there in which I call the conservative factor. And it's just it multiplies everything by 1 on the click side of things for that average clicks to conversion, I can multiply it. It starts off as 1. And if I want to be a little bit more conservative, I can like raise that to like 1.2, 1.5, whatever. Or if I want to be more aggressive, I can lower that to 0.8, whatever. And I can basically use that to adjust, how many clicks I'm trying to anticipate. I don't know if that makes sense, but the point is all of this stuff you should feel comfortable tweaking depending on the wider context. You understand overall, how's your account doing? Overall, is the client more concerned about total sales declining, or is he more concerned about ACOS going up? Right? That's for me going to be the bigger difference between do I want to be more conservative or more aggressive with these bidding formulas. So that's why I include that little formula there. Like if sales are dropping and clients like we need to get sales up, I can say I could be more aggressive with my variable. Anyways, I'm rambling now. Say that for another time.
All right, let's wrap it up. Thanks for tuning in to episode 4 of That Amazon Ads Podcast. Do us a favor, leave us a like, subscribe, leave us a review if you thought this was helpful on your podcast platform of choice. And as always, we'll see you next time.
Peace out.